Hi, and welcome back. I'm Sheldon McLeod, and this is Thinking Out Loud here on the SaltWire Network. And if you're a political nerd, if you like the news, there will be lots to digest over the next little bit. The Nova Scotia government is about to start the legislative session with Tim Houston and his party. As he said to a colleague of mine, Frank Campbell, last week, healthcare remains Houston's focus as the MLAs head back to the House for the spring sitting of the Legislature, which will be about a budget predominantly. Zach Churchill is the member representing Yarmouth. He's also the leader of Nova Scotia's official opposition. And Zach Churchill is leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, of Nova Scotia. I didn't mean to give you a promotion there. Liberal Party leader of Nova Scotia. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Sheldon. Pleasure to be back with you.
And what is it like for you today ahead of the spring sitting of the Legislature? What does it mean for you today?
Well, listen, we're preparing. We've got big issues that we want to talk about this House session. Of course, the situation in our healthcare system is getting drastically worse, particularly if you're looking at how many people have a family doctor or need a family doctor. That number has doubled over the term of this government's time in office. We've also seen ER closures double over the last couple of years. So, and it's for no shortage of spending either. We've seen Premier Houston spend a lot of money on healthcare, but it's going to things like research and development. It's purchasing half-built hotels. It's not going to the front lines. It's not going into areas that will attach patients to family doctors or deal with our emergency crisis situation. It's not shortening surgical wait times either. And these are all things he promised to fix. So certainly we'll have some questions along those lines and have some ideas of our own that we're going to be presenting. And the affordability and housing crisis is affecting so many Nova Scotians right now. We've got a generation of Nova Scotians who potentially want to be homeowners that are seeing that dream slip away because of the finances around purchasing home, high interest rates, and we're also seeing a lot of concern in the rental market with new entrants paying really high rates of rent. So we're really going to be focused on healthcare and affordability.
Angus Reid Corporation, the folks that do surveying and polling, out with a set of numbers today that said, 1 in 2 Canadians say that their life is not better now than it was a year ago. And that's something that's used in politics as a benchmark. So I'm curious, how do you make the business of the House relevant, that people want to pay attention, that it's not just political theater?
Well, we've got to talk about the issues that matter to people. The worsening state of our healthcare system is, of course, top of mind, and this is why Premier Houston was elected in the first place, was to fix healthcare. And he said we see changes on day one. And again, 2 key areas: how many people have a family doctor, and emergency room closures. Twice as many people need a family doctor now than when he started, and our ER closures have doubled under his watch as well. So we need to see some changes on that front. We've got some legislation coming forward to support doctor recruitment and retention, like bringing back the financial incentive for family doctors to practice in Halifax. Halifax is our most rapidly growing area of the province, and the numbers have shot up for people that need a family doctor by over 200%. And this started to happen after Premier Houston cut the family practice incentive here. So that's a problem that needs to be reinstated, we believe. And we also need to see more money going into the front lines. We have big vacancies in our hospitals. Some of our hospitals have 80% nursing vacancies. You can't run an emergency room without people. So we do need to see some investment in the front lines and more focus on outcomes instead of the big kind of political announcements that we've seen around healthcare.
You've moved into this new role as the leader, and I know the previous leader, Ian Rankin, when I spoke with him, it's hard to move the conversation past what you could have done in government. I'm not talking hypotheticals here, but I know there was an answer you gave to a reporter today that said things are different now than they were a year ago. How are they different politically outside of the fact that you're in opposition, but curious about your thoughts or your analysis of where things are now compared to when you were a member of government?
Well, consider when I started politics and when we were in government for 8 years, we had a low inflationary period. We had high unemployment. We had a real estate market that was affordable. All of these things are the exact opposite now. We've got a labor shortage. We've got rapidly increasing inflation, and have had a red hot real estate market that has driven prices up. We also had low interest rates back then. So all of these, the whole context for these things is entirely different. It's the opposite of what it was when certainly when I was in government, and that's why we need to change our approach and our thinking on these things.
How do you know if you're successful in your role as the opposition leader? How do you measure that?
Well, I won't know until the next election happens and Nova Scotians, decide on who they want to lead the province. So certainly we're going to be focused on bringing forward good ideas that will help with healthcare and not just dealing with the crisis in our emergency rooms and in primary care, but also to help people be healthier. We have a population demographically and from an illness perspective that deals with high rates of illnesses, higher than other provinces. So if we don't help people be healthier, we're also not going to catch up to the challenges in our healthcare system. So we'll also be having bills coming forward this session to help people with their health as well, so that they can live longer and happier and need the healthcare system less. And a part of that is also finances. People are stressed out right now. We've got the cost of living shooting up on everything from your, what you're paying for your mortgage, your rent for those that aren't under the rent cap, that are new to the rental market, for food, for gas. And we've got some bills coming forward to actually help provide some financial relief to people. We're only one of two provinces that don't index income tax to inflation, right? We're bringing in a bill this session that will actually put more money back in the pockets of Nova Scotians by cutting their income tax. And we'll do that by indexing their income to inflation, so that we can actually recognize that a family household making $70,000 last year is actually making 8% less this year if they have the same income. We'll also be bringing forward legislation to freeze the provincial tax on gas. Fuel costs going up is a real pressure on a lot of people, particularly in rural Nova Scotia, who have to drive to work. And we think these things can actually provide a lot of financial relief to Nova Scotians and help them not just make ends meet, but live better lives and live healthier lives.
And so much of politics is seen to be this thrust and parry, the verbal back and forth that is, for the most part, what we're talking about when there's question period. But that spectacle, that political, I guess I asked, but I'll ask again, is it still relevant? Does it matter what happens inside the House of Assembly?
It matters if we're talking about issues that matter and talking constructively about what the right ideas are to help people. That's how we make that chamber relevant, So we're going to be focused, I think, on what the issues are top of mind for Nova Scotians. That's the state of our healthcare, the worsening state of our healthcare, despite the fact that we've got a government that has a lot more money from the federal government and is spending a lot more money. We're not seeing a return on that investment yet. It has not reversed negative trends in our healthcare system. And we're going to be talking about affordability in ways that the government can help make life more affordable for people, help keep their hard-earned money in their pockets, and keep prices a bit lower at the gas pump. These are things I think that matter to people and that impact their lives in pretty consequential ways. We've seen more people die in our healthcare system under Tim Houston. Why is that happening? It can be life and death for people in these situations, as we've seen, particularly in our emergency rooms.
And the eve of the sitting of the spring legislative session, it's a budget session. Here's your pitch, your opportunity. What should people watch for? What are you going to be saying over the next few weeks?
We're going to bring forward good ideas to help with doctor recruitment and retention, deal with the issues that doctors have been telling us are problems. That's their overhead and paperwork. These things need to be addressed. We need that financial incentive to be back, particularly in the Halifax region. That should not have been cut. And we've seen the amount of doctors leaving family practice increase since the time that the Tories cut that fund. And we also have to bring in some affordability measures to help people. And that also can deal with this housing crisis too that's impacting so many people. So there's a lot of big issues to deal with, and we're certainly going to be taking every moment of every day to talk about the issues that matter most to people.
He is the leader of His Majesty's official opposition, Zach Churchill, leader of Nova Scotia's Liberal Party. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheldon. Appreciate your time very much.
And Claudia Chender is the Dartmouth South member of the Legislative Assembly. She's also the leader of Nova Scotia's New Democratic Party. And Claudia Chender joins us here today. Good day to you.
Good morning.
What's this like for you on the eve of a legislative session? What's this feel like for you as leader?
Well, this is really when we have our best opportunity to find out what the government's priorities are and to actually have the time to probe with some real questions, not the theater of question period, around why the government is choosing to spend the money that they are spending. Of course, we need some real work on accountability, as the AG has said. So we're going to see a budget, but then the government can really continue to spend as much money as they want. But it's really important, and it's important for Nova Scotians and the people that we represent to understand what the government is going to do. So we, of course, are looking for investments in primary health. You and I have talked about that a few times, family health teams. We believe that that's a huge part of fixing the healthcare crisis. We're looking for investments in housing, in truly affordable housing, which we just need so much more of. And we're looking for the government to do things like waive pharmacare fees while Nova Scotians can get a handle on this cost of living crisis and not have to choose between food and medicine. So, yeah, we'll be all ears for sure on Tuesday.
How do you convince people that this matters? That what happens in the House of Assembly does impact their lives? Because it's news, it's something that's there, maybe background noise.
Yeah. Well, I think, as a party, our whole priority is to bring the voices of Nova Scotians into the legislature. And it's certainly my view that what we're seeing right now is a government who really is a bit out of touch with the experience of everyday Nova Scotians. When Tim Houston gave his first big speech at the Chamber of Commerce, he talked about Nova Scotia getting its swagger back. I don't think of Nova Scotia as a place that has a ton of swagger. I think about it as a place that has beauty and kindness and grit and perseverance. And so I think that, I think in terms of convincing people that it matters, I think people are beyond the point of being able to ignore the housing crisis. And I think people are beyond the point of being able to ignore the healthcare crisis. It's impacting almost everybody in their day-to-day life or somebody we all know or care about. And so I think we need to make the connection that the government can solve some of these problems, that they need to actually walk the talk. We have a lot of announcements. We have a lot of conversation about great things, but the people I talk to every day don't see a difference. They don't see healthcare getting better, and the numbers don't show it either. And so I think that's why people care, because they want to know that healthcare is there when they need it, and they want to know they can have a roof over their heads.
I mentioned there's an Angus Reid survey out today that says almost half of Canadians say they're in a worse place now financially than they were a year ago. And that's often used in politics. Are you in a better place now than you were a year ago?
That's right.
And I'm curious, no one knows what's going to happen in the next year. So how does Claudia Chender and the NDP make life better for us in a minority, in a situation where the government has a majority?
We bring those people's voices into the legislature, because I think that those people who say that life is harder for them a year ago are not in the mainstream of the people that this government is talking to. So when we see funding announcements, it's for private developers to build more housing and make more money. It's for, healthcare redevelopment, which of course we need, but is years and years away. The people I'm talking to are, paramedics who make the least amount of money in the entire province, who are suffering under a tremendous amount of stress and trauma, and people who call those paramedics and don't get timely response because we don't have enough on the road. The people I talk to are struggling to keep a roof over their head. We just had a housing press conference this morning where we heard about, a fixed term lease that goes from $950 a month to $2,250 a month the very next day. So I think to make life better for people is we impress upon this government these stories of real people's experience, and we convince them to act in ways that actually make a meaningful and quick difference. This is a government that's more, faster, better, stronger, this is all of the taglines. So yeah, more, faster. We need to quickly address the core issues that people are facing, and those are affordability and those are healthcare. And there are some ways that this government can focus its finances and its energy to make a real difference in people's lives.
A budget document will be tabled, it will be discussed and debated, and Claudia Chender and the NDP will stand up to say what?
And we will stand up to say, to look for investments in primary health care, to look for investments in healthcare workers, to look for investments in housing, investments in public housing. We had a deputy minister of housing for the first time in my elected life say, I think we need public housing. And the reality is that we need truly affordable housing, rent geared to income. Right now, if you are eligible for public housing in this province, and you are on a priority list for public housing, when I was elected, that would mean a matter of weeks or months. Right now, it means about 2.5 years. 2.5 years. So you say it's an absolute emergency. We have a health problem. We're fleeing domestic violence. There's some reason I immediately need public housing, and then you wait 2.5 years. We need investment in housing. So that's what we're looking for. And if we don't see it, we will continue to press. We will continue to bring the stories of everyday Nova Scotians into the legislature until the government acts.
And when the government has a majority and they choose to support the legislation that their party brings forward, how does Claudia Chender and the NDP manage expectations, manage your assessment of whether or not you're doing your job?
My job is to represent the voices of my constituents and of Nova Scotians in the legislature. And that is what I go to work and do every day. I've done for the last 6 years, and that's what I'll continue to do. And that has made a meaningful difference. When COVID first struck, we were the ones who said, we have a problem here. People are going to be homeless. They're not working. And so we were able to, through pressure and through advocacy, bring about a temporary rent cap, which is set to expire, which is part of our renewed focus on the need for things like rent control. We were able to bring about a temporary eviction ban. We've been able to, we advocated the minute that I assumed leadership of this party in my very first speech, I called for direct support to Nova Scotians for the rising cost of living. And in December, we saw that direct support in the form of the expanded heating assistance rebate program. So I think our advocacy is successful. And I think, as I said, we bring the stories of Nova Scotians into the House. That's what we do. And so in terms of managing expectations, I think that is people's expectation of what we do and what we can do. And that is what we will continue to do until we're successful. And we have a province where everyone can thrive, not just the friends of the Premier.
And we obviously have the session about to begin. So last word to you, Claudia Chender. Tell me a little bit about what you are expecting, what you would like to see happen, and perhaps give us your pitch.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we'll get some real answers as to how we are going to weather this storm. I think, as you point out, it's not just here. That Angus Reid poll and others show that we are in really difficult times right across the country and here in Nova Scotia. And I think we need a government that understands that and can respond to it in a real way. We hear lots of announcements, lots of big plans for things that are going to happen down the road. But I think what we're looking for is an answer to how are you going to ensure that people make it through this extraordinarily difficult period right now, and while we build a better and more equitable system for the future. And so that's what we're going to be looking for. I wouldn't say that's what we expect, because it's not what we've seen so far, but certainly, we will continue to listen to Nova Scotians, bring their voices into the legislature, and to push for compassionate and clear and steady governance that will take us to the other side of the challenges we're facing right now.
The Dartmouth South MLA and the leader of Nova Scotia's New Democratic Party, Claudia Chender. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sheldon.